Welcome to Sullivan and Cromwell Sidebar, where we talk with our different litigation partners about some of the most interesting legal issues they've seen in their careers and what they're seeing on the horizon. Today we are joined by my good friend, Jamie McDonald. Jamie is co-head of our Commodities, Futures, and Derivatives practice. He's the former Director of Enforcement at the U.S. Commodities Futures Trading Commission, and he's been a partner at Sullivan and Cromwell since 2021. Jamie's career has been nothing but meteoric, and it's my pleasure to talk to him today. Jamie, welcome.
Thanks, Jay. Thanks for having me.
Great. So let's just get into it. You have so many interesting things in your career. Just start with a few and how they've shaped your view of the legal landscape and more importantly, the markets and how we counsel our clients.
Sure. And you're right. We've been fortunate here to be able to see a lot of really interesting issues. The thing that I think is the most interesting is that most of the issues that we see actually don't have controlling precedents. We try to position ourselves where clients are turning to us where they have significant issues or significant opportunities. They're significant for the clients because they're on the cutting edge. Our clients think about dealing in new ideas and novel areas. There often is no business or legal precedent for the sorts of things that they're doing.
Well, let me jump in there because our listeners should know that you have a skill that not everyone has. Most good lawyers have the ability to identify issues. That's sort of table stakes. But in these areas where there's no controlling precedent and the like, I think identifying where things are going or where they can go and how to shape the situation to get them to that best endpoint, that's the real skill. And I've seen that in you. Maybe talk a little bit about how you think about that.
I think that's right, Jay. So much of this happens in between these different areas where you're required to give advice or reason by analogy or think about areas that are adjacent to the area where the question is principally arising, or think about where the regulators are going to go or where the markets are going to go.
Right. If the outcome was predestined, you wouldn't need us, right?
Sure. This is, I think, a good example of how we try to approach these sorts of issues. You started by talking about the commodity space. But a question that always comes up is, okay, is this a commodities question or is this a securities question? What about this transaction or this opportunity that we're looking at that kind of sits in between?
And knowing that the government is grappling with that same question or that others are grappling with the same question means that it's a dynamic playing field.
That's exactly right. And I think that's where what we try to do is position ourselves as individual lawyers where you can cut across different practice areas. So we're not just looking at something through a commodities angle. We're not just looking at something through a securities angle. We're not just looking at it through the angle of how a prudential regulator might look at it. But you can kind of look across the terrain.
So that CFTC, SEC overlap and what I would say is the debate about where jurisdiction begins and ends and whether the CFTC has jurisdiction over the spot market, those are all current issues, ones that we're grappling with. Let's shift gears. Let's talk about some high-level developments that you think clients should keep their eyes on, in addition to that very live development in CFTC, SEC jurisdiction?
Right. That's a really good question, Jay. And one of the things that we're seeing is clients are becoming increasingly reliant on programs, controls, automated processes. There are new issues and risks that are presenting themselves around these types of issues that are a little bit different, actually, from the types of intent-based questions and risks and issues that folks have thought about for the last couple decades. Whether you're talking about artificial intelligence, the importance of data, the increased use of computer programs, or just automation more generally, businesses are finding themselves more reliant on these types of processes, and they're seeing these issues come up really across their business.
Yeah, I got to tell you, Jamie, this is so important. This is a development that you and I have talked about that most people don't see. It used to be that regulators, law enforcement officials, they looked at human judgment. Well, let me put it this way. They looked at outcomes they didn't like, and then they said, was there either nefarious activity or poor human judgment that led to that outcome? Now they're going even farther, and they're saying, human judgment was good. There was no nefarious activity, but we still don't like the outcome. Let's look at your systems. That's a sea change, isn't it?
In one sense, it is a sea change. One of the things that I think about, though, when I think about this area is it's the same kind of question that we thought about with the advent of high-frequency or automated trading, for example. So when I was at the CFTC, one of the questions that came up is, what do you do with a runaway algo? So you have algorithmic trading, somebody designs it, and it trades in a way that has some sort of disruptive impact on the market. And there was a question, well, okay, who do you hold accountable? How do you hold that person accountable? What are the types of supervision and controls that should be in place in connection with that? And I think we came to a place where it was understood that, okay, if you're going to be developing these kinds of automated trading processes, then you have to have controls and supervision in place to ensure that there's no sort of disruptive effect. I think what's happening now is a step further. It really is, I think, a step further where you're seeing a reliance on what are often strict liability provisions to come in and second guess or question or even seek to bring enforcement actions based on what could be characterized as a control failure.
See, I think that's the reasoning to a historic analogy that you do so well in these areas and explaining what's going on in an accessible way, which I think is one of the reasons you have such good relationships with your clients. In addition to that, that ability to communicate in a clear way that doesn't lose the technical specificity. What other ways do you develop strong relationships with your clients?
And it's obviously central to what we do. You talked about table stakes. I think the table stakes here is an intense focus on providing the best possible service. If you can't do that, then really none of the rest of it matters. But I think we spend a lot of time focusing on really trying to provide strategic advice. So not just advice about a particular transaction or a particular question. We're really trying to move it from a purely transactional relationship to one where we really understand the business. So
how much time do you spend? I mean, I know you spend a great deal of time staying current on the law, actually commenting on the law, but how much time do you spend understanding the businesses of your clients so you can give that strategic advice?
Jay, I spend as much time as I can. I try to spend as much time with the actual people at the business to try to understand the sorts of things that are driving them. Businesses are different in part, because the markets are different, the industries may be different, but also the people are different. Different businesses have different risk tolerance. They have different near and medium and long-term goals. They're facing different obstacles. And I think it's really important to me to be able to understand them as people, the kinds of things that are important to them, the kinds of things that are important to their businesses, so that you can sort of look around the corner and think, well, okay, you've asked me this kind of a question, but here's the next question that's going to come, or this question may actually indicate that you have an opportunity in this other area, but you really got to understand
and at-bats matter. The more you interact with clients, the more different types of clients who have different risk tolerances, different objectives, the better, right?
That's right. That's exactly right.
So we've talked about the law. We've talked about the client relationships. Let's turn a little bit internally, and you're a leader of one of our most important groups. What advice do you give to the associates that you're mentoring, that you're working with, on how to become a better lawyer, how to become a partner at Sullivan & Cromwell?
Right. We spend a lot of time on developing the next generation of talent here. If you think about this practice area, it really, one way to think about it is the intersection of finance and technology and regulation in an area where often the regulatory environment is trying to catch up with what the business is doing. And so I think it presents a lot of really exciting and fun opportunities. But as you say, it's a technical area. And so it requires an upfront investment of time and energy. And so one of the things that we try to do is support our younger lawyers as they're making that investment, try to build the teams that they have a collegial and fun environment to do it in, and to really provide them sort of support system to do that. But I tell them all the time, you got to be proactive. You got to show up. For me, that means showing up in the office and being around people and learning from people and seeing how people do it. And also, what I tell the associates is you also got to be an interesting person. You want to be the kind of person, I think the kind of people who clients turn to, it's not that different from having a good friend who would turn to you when they face an issue or an opportunity. I think you want to be the kind of person who your friends turn to for those sorts of things. And you also want to be the kind of person who your clients turn to.
That's terrific advice. Let me close by saying I often say with Sullivan and Cromwell lawyers, it's time well spent. I think 5 to 10 minutes with Jamie McDonald is worth hours of what I would say is run-of-the-mill legal advice. Jamie, it's been my pleasure to talk to you today. Thank you very much.
Jay, thank you.